Hi there folks, welcome back to the IB and Andy Fishing Channel and welcome back to
IB!
How you doing, IB? How's it going?
I always get such a big introduction that I feel ashamed a little bit. Because I always feel like I'm not on the channel. Ever.
We need to see you a bit more on this channel, don't we?
I think so.
But the thing is, you catch all the fish.
Yeah, and you don't catch any fish.
On the subject of catching fish, how has the start of your trout season gone?
Really hard. There's not many bugs. It's cold. We had frost at night, like we had snow about 4 days ago.
Yeah.
For like 3 days in a row, every morning it was snowing. So, just like last year. If not, I would say probably harder than last year.
The good news is, it is starting to warm up now. We are just ahead of the bank holiday weekend in April, and it looks like it's going to warm up, and It is all about to happen. Hopefully you guys are getting out and starting to do a little bit of fishing as the trout season starts to warm up. As you've probably guessed from the title and the thumbnail of the video, we've got something really exciting today. This has been 6 months worth of work.
Probably more than that.
This has taken a lot to get all this organised, but we are super, super proud to be able to introduce, by popular demand, you've got one on your side, I've got one on my side, the IB and Andy Trout Dry Packs and Trout Nymph Fly Packs.
Woohoo!
So this is something that's kind of come from the IB and Andy kind of generic trout pack that we did last year. That was super popular, and off the back of that we got people saying, would you do a pack of Euro nymphs? Would you do just a pack of dry flies? You know, we like these flies, we can see they work. Would you expand on that a little bit? And we were a little bit reluctant to start with because we don't want to be a fishing shop, do we?
Yeah, no.
But having the web shop there and being able to get stuff like this to you guys, like the Euro nymphing packs, like the Grayling packs, it's been really cool, it's been really fun, it's a great process for us. And I think that these are probably the best packs we've done yet. What do you reckon?
So far, yeah, and it's not a coincidence that it's my birthday, and it's basically my birthday packs because they're amazing, and I'm amazing, so here we go.
So these two now belong to you, do they?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good start,
Might as well, if you get these, cross Andy out and just put IB Trout Pack.
What we ought to do, IB, is show the people what is in these packs. So which one should we start with, IB?
Nymphing pack, because I'm the one holding it.
Okay, I'll put this one to one side for the moment. So why don't you introduce the first of the 10 flies, and we'll just go through this again. So it's 10 patterns, you get 3 of each. We've talked about this in the past. I hate it when you buy a selection of trout flies and you only get 1 of each. There is nothing worse than finding that fly that works, and then you catch a couple of fish and then you lose it, or it goes in a tree, or you get snapped off on a fish and then you're stuck. So we've been consistent with this, haven't we? Every pack we do, you get 3 of each pattern. That's super important to us.
Yeah, and I think you worked it out really cleverly as well, that you worked in sizes as well.
Yep, that's right. So we've gone roughly heavy to light, big hook to short hook, with one big exception down in the right-hand corner, but we'll get to that. IB, what is the first pattern in the IB and Andy Trout Nymph pack?
So the first fly is size 10, Peeping Caddis.
It's a great point fly. It's a fantastic point fly, nice and heavy. We have had a little bit of a fiddle around with the bead colour. The bead is actually kind of more of a natural coffee brown than that very, very bright copper one. I think the bead actually suits the pattern better. What do you reckon?
And I think you will see that that's like kind of a pattern in the box itself, that we have a variation of beads to suit natural waters, murky waters. So I think that's quite clever.
We have played around with the beads, absolutely. The other thing about our Peeping Caddis that might be a little bit different to some that you see on the market is that we've actually opted for a slightly longer peeping bit. The actual caddis grub bit is probably a little bit longer and slightly brighter than most you see on the market. It just gives you that extra little bit of colour. We're assuming that this Peeping Caddis is going to be right on the bottom, right in the depths, in those deep pools. So that little bit of extra colour, I think, is going to be really important. Really solid fly, that one.
Right, on to the next fly.
Yeah, so the next one is an absolute classic. It's a size 12, 3.3mm bead, orange collar pheasant tail.
It's a great fly. I like this fly to use in more like natural water situations where it's a bit clearer, or even if I'm using a single nymph to get a trout, just one fly. If you can see the fish, it worked for me really well, especially on the dove and the derwent last year. So fingers crossed it does this year as well.
Yeah, a couple of things we've done differently with this actually. Again, the bead is slightly different. We opted to go away from the real bright copper. This is actually kind of an apricot-y colour. I found a bead that just wasn't quite as blingy. It had that same kind of effect, but wasn't quite as blingy. So as IB said, in clear water, really effective. The other thing about this fly is we've gone for a big chunky tail, nice big tail, nice big profile. And we've also gone for quite a heavy CDC collar. And that's a bit of a pattern on all the flies that we've used that CDC collar on.
When it's wet, you can see the movement. It looks really
you get
bad
that
in the
movement.
water.
The thing is, if we use more CDC to start with, it gives you guys the option of just plucking a little bit out. So if you end up in a situation where you think, actually, I'd quite like just to tone that down a little bit, you've got the option of just plucking a couple of those CDC fibres out. and getting the fly exactly how you want it. An absolute staple.
Yep, and the next fly is size 12, 3.5 mil bead caddis grub.
Yeah, absolute. Again, absolute essential. It's one of those flies actually that probably doesn't look much in the box dry, but when you get this thing wet, you'll see there's all kind of little UV fibres in the dubbing, little flecks, there's movement. It looks really, really juicy. Great imitation of the natural caddis scrub. Pretty much every river in the UK has got caddis scrubs at the bottom of it. Nice and heavy, you can get it down, fish it as a point fly, fish it as a top dropper on a team of two if you really, really need to get down. There isn't a trout in the UK that doesn't eat caddis scrubs, and that is a really cool pattern. We opted for a little orange collar again, just for a little dash of colour, but we've kept this one reasonably subtle because we wanted that nice, natural, juicy texture. It looks fantastic when you get it wet. So the next fly in the box is a size 12, 3.3mm bright orange beaded coloured water jig. Now this fly was one of the ones we really wrestled with because we knew we wanted a fly in there that was specifically for those conditions when you arrive to the river and think, oh man, it's way more coloured than I expected. Because you can still catch fish in those situations, you just need the right patterns. And we had a real tug of war between either this one or a squirmy. And to be honest, they would have both been relevant. The reason we went for this one is we like the idea of the trout fishing, trout season, nice natural imitations. We've already put a squirmy in one of the other boxes anyway, so there's a chance you guys have already got them. It's a brilliant fly. That bright orange bead, every guide I've ever spoken to anywhere in the world who fishes for trout has got a bright orange beaded nymph in their box. So it's just something about it. It selects fish, it draws fish. And as I say, in those conditions where you've got super coloured water, this is a great pattern, point fly or top dropper. You'll pull fish with this that you might not necessarily have pulled if you were fishing more natural flies.
And the next fly is size 14, 3.2mm bead, IB's red tag. Because it had to be in there, and I think every pack we've done ever has one of these in it, just because you have to have a red tag. Like, it's one of the, like, if someone said if there was only one fly, one nymph that you could pick, it would be a red tag. Like, there is no two options about it.
Yeah, and I think you've done a really good job on this one. Again, we've been really picky with materials here, and you'll notice something different about this one. All the red tags we've used previously, and you're right, we have put a red tag in every single box, have been quite a bright gold bead, a real flashy one. But again, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to mix it up a little bit. We actually found what's called an old gold. It's the effect on the bead. It's nowhere near as bright as your traditional blingy chrome coloured kind of bright gold bead, which means it's a bit more natural, I think.
A bit more subtle,
yeah. I can just see this fly as a point fly on a team of two in a 2-foot riffle, getting down, being seen, hang a pheasant tail above it. This fly is going to be absolutely deadly. I'm really, really proud of this one. I think it's probably one of my favourite flies in both packs.
Is it?
Did a good job on those. Yeah, I really like that bead.
You know, it's IB fly after all.
Another fly, actually, moving on, another fly that we've got in there that I'm always super happy to tie on because it's so versatile, is the size 14 2.8mm caddis pupa. So almost not quite a nymph, this one. This is kind of an emerging nymph, which is why it's got that bright green body, which is why it's got that nice mobile partridge hackle. It's actually a fly that a lot of people who have watched the channel or come to the channel have seen me catch a number of fish on, because when we filmed the You're a Nymphing how-to video, this was the fly that was fishing on the swing for those fish in that fast riffle. They see that thing rise up in the water and you get really solid takes right at the bottom end of the drift. It's also really effective actually fished underneath a indicator fly. Fish it kind of mid-water, keep it off the bottom. Great underneath an indicator cling camera. Brilliant fly. Really, really glad to have that one in there. That was an essential.
The next fly, we're getting smaller and smaller now, is a size 14 2.5mm bead quill jig, and it's a very natural pattern, I would say. Again, with that slightly darker bead, not to be too flashy or anything, but just enough to draw the attention of trout. And it works, again, really great. You can fish it as a top dropper. You can use it as targeting trout just as a one nymph. I think it's a great fly. Again, who doesn't need a quill jig?
It's a classic fly, isn't it? And you're absolutely right with that bead. So that bead is apparently a coffee colour. So again, we could have gone down the copper route with this one, but just by going down a shade on that bead, I think it gives a much more natural looking fly, a fly that you could fish in reasonably coloured water because it's got that dark profile. But I'd be just as comfortable fishing this in really clear water because it doesn't have that real bright, vibrant flash that maybe some of the other flies on the market have. Really, really like that one. And again, heavy CDC collar. If you want to tone it down a bit, just rip a couple of bits of CDC out. As I say, we leave that CDC in so you guys can get it exactly how you want. On the subject of that CDC collar, you'll see the next fly in the box is a size 16 2.8mm beaded orange tag. Again, as I say, we've used that heavy CDC collar so you can get it exactly how you want it. Do you know what? I am fishing orange tags more and more these days. In fact, there was a point last year where my 2-fly rig for trout was a red tag and an orange tag. There's just something about it. Yeah, something about it. Not only great for trout either, great grayling fly. We actually had a couple of barbel on the orange tag, but it seemed to be selective. That was really weird. The 2 barbel we caught were both on that same fly.
Don't tell the secrets.
But as a trout fly, the orange tag is one of those classics. I think the Americans have started calling them a flamethrower. It's an orange tag to me, but whatever you want to call it, it's absolutely fine. Again, nice natural dressing. This time we did go with that nice bright copper bead. Again, fish it in coloured water, fish it in clear water. Fish an orange tag absolutely anywhere. Couldn't not go in the box. Absolutely essential in my eyes.
And now the next fly, it would be size 18, 2mm bead, red colour, pheasant tail nymph. It's small, it's tiny, it's great for targeting a specific trout. I think I've used that quite a bit as my top dropper for the whole of last year.
It's a great fly for that point in the season where the water's got low, hasn't it? And you're starting to fish further up towards the heads of riffles and you want a slightly lighter rig. Do you know, I was looking at this earlier and I was like, at that time of year, those last 3 flies that we've talked about, the quill jig, the orange tag and the red collar pheasant tail, once you get into high summer and you're starting to explore those shallower riffles, they are going to be the ones in this pack, I'm absolutely sure. As you said, you can also use it as a nymph for sight fishing. Be really, really effective as that.
Because it's so small as well, it doesn't like spook the fish because it doesn't land really heavily.
So. Get a nice gentle clip, don't you, when it lands. So yeah, great for that. Great as a top dropper, really versatile. We had to have something in there that was a bit smaller for that time of the season when things get a bit harder and you start scaling down. So again, absolute essential. IB, there is one more nymph in this pack and it's probably going to end up being the headline act.
I believe that to you.
So we've done a number of videos in the last couple of years exploring fishing with a Euro nymphing rig with small streamers, tiny little streamers, you know, being able to bow and arrow them up against trees, pull out those fish that are lying half dormant or they're looking for bigger food items swimming past them, particularly early and late in the season. And you guys really enjoyed it. We got a lot of messages and emails asking us about the flies. And I thought, you know what, here's a great opportunity to get these out on the market. Because while I will say Full and Mill have increased their selection of smaller jig flies and jig buggers really, really nicely in the last 12 or 18 months, it's still very hard to get something that's heavy enough to get down immediately. So we've got here a size 10, 5.5mm tungsten beaded jig bugger. And I am really happy with these, how these came out. Again, had a bit of a wrestle about the colour. Do we go black because that would have been more traditional, or do we go with the dark brown with the green bars through it? I'm happy with how it's come out because I actually think in most water conditions this is the more effective one than the jet black. I do find that black in real clear water. Sometimes you get fish rush it but not eat it, whereas this thing, in almost any condition, if you get that fish following it, they smash it. Just a couple of notes about the tie-in dressing that might seem unusual. First off, that marabou tail, it's not a big flowing marabou tail like you might have on a leech pattern or something like that. That's not what we're going for. We want a little pulsy marabou tail. You're not going to be fishing this in big 20-yard sweeps. You're throwing this against the trees and stuff like that. Couple of taps, pull it out, throw it against the next tree. So you just want that kind of poof of the marabou rather than a big long thing that risks tail nips and stuff like that. We've palmed the body of it with grizzle hackle quite heavily as well. Again, want that movement, that's going to push some water. Underneath that, you'll find there's a UV red rib, which just gives, again, nice target point, something for them to see. And then up at the head of the fly, we've put some UV dubbing right at the top, little bit of sparkle just to fill out the head a little bit. And again, we've used that same red rib as a collar just behind that 5.5mm tungsten bead. This is such a cool fly. You guys have seen us doing this now for a couple of years. It's very, very hard to get these flies to do this specific type of Euro kind of streamer fishing. You've seen us use it, you've seen us catch on it, and I'm really, really happy to have got this in there because this was probably the hardest one to get right out of all of them.
And that's the pack.
That is the pack. And
that's the first pack.
It's come out so well, it's so rounded. The top row is the heaviest stuff. They're your point flies. They're the ones you'll fish early and late in the season when there's a bit more water, big breadth of diversity, coloured water, clear water.
The bottom row, apart from the exception with Euro jig bugger, you can all fish it as a dropper on like a dry and dropper rig.
Yeah, absolutely. You could hang them underneath an indicator clink hammer or something like that. They're all light enough that you can suspend them, so versatility there. Fish any of them on a Euro rig, absolutely fine. And then that jig bugger down at the bottom of the pack there.
The
But
filth.
those days when things are really hard and you think, wow, where are they? Start whacking that towards the tree roots and you'll soon find out where they are.
Should we start on the next one?
Yeah, I think we ought to have a look at the other pack. So this is the Trout Dry Pack. I mean, I'm going to try and hold this as stylishly as you did. You did a good job there. Again, it's 10 different patterns, 3 of each. What we're trying to do here is cover the 2 main species of insect that you'll get in every single river in the UK. These are river-specific packs, both of them. So the 2 main species that you'll get in every river, we've stayed away from the kind of seasonal stuff. So mayflies and hawthorns and stuff like that. Not every river's going to have those.
No, like March Browns.
Exactly that, yeah. We didn't want to put those in because not every river's going to have those things. What we wanted to put in these packs are the absolute solid baseline killers that you could take anywhere in the UK, probably anywhere in the world, let's be honest, and rely on this box of flies to catch fish. We were just saying off camera just before we started this. If I had a client, when I'm guiding, come to me and this was their fly box for fishing the Derbyshire Wye or the Dove or the Derwent, I'd be like, perfect. That is exactly right. These are the flies that I use on those rivers every single day.
Well, we're saying, like, when we first put the pack together and we opened our own fly boxes, and I'm like, every single fly that we already have in our box and we use.
It's what we use. It's what you guys have watched us catching on before, so it made sense to put these in the box. The first fly in here is we couldn't have made a dry fly pack and not put one of these in, but again, we've just altered the dressing a little bit. This is a size 12 sparkle clink hammer. Now, you guys have fished clinks before, I'm absolutely sure of it. You get that lovely natural kind of fly hanging just under the surface presentation. The fish see it from miles away. Great as a caddis emerger. But actually, it does work in an olive hatch as well. Again, it's just that, get that body under the water. They see it from miles away. What we've done differently here, well, there's 2 things really. We've used a really fine pearl mylar rib for the body, so you get that kind of natural sparkle through the dubbing. Nice natural dubbing, but a little bit of that pearl rib. Loads of sparkle, again, loads of visibility. The other thing is that we've made it with a lovely bright green side post that you're going to be able to see in most light situations at any time of year. Pop it through a riffle, see if there's anything that's willing to look up. Pop it under the trees when those fish are really crunching caddis. You could fish this pretty much any time of year and be confident that if it's going over fish, it's going to be pulling them up. We couldn't have made a pack without a clink, could we?
No, definitely not. And you should fish it. If you haven't, you should be fishing it.
On the subject of emergers, which obviously the clink hammer is, the next fly is a size 14 deer hair emerger. So I've put this on the same row as the other caddis, but actually I'm going to caveat this straight away and say I am just as happy fishing a deer hair emerger in an olive hatch as I am in a caddis hatch. Just as happy. The profile is great, it hangs under the water. Where I'd fish this as opposed to the clink hammer is on that slightly calmer waters. You know when you get those glassy flats and there's fish just kind of nosing? You know, it's not a big splash, but you know it's caddis. You can see them on the water. Put that one on. Give it a good dressing on the deer hair. Get some Hunt's Original floating on the deer hair. Get that body sat below the surface. It is brilliant for those fish. Nice subtle dressing. We haven't got too crazy with the dressing on this one because you can fish this in calmer water, in flatter water, so it doesn't need all that bling. And as a size 14, you're imitating everything there from the small caddis right the way through, medium-sized olives, stuff like that. It's probably the all-round size for a DHE, is that size 14. It'll do pretty much everything.
And the next fly is size 14, high float caddis. We cannot not put that in because the fly just works. Like, that's the easiest way probably to describe it. It just works. I particularly like using this fly in a little bit worse light conditions because it has that orange post. You can see it, especially for people like me who are blind. And my favorite thing to do would be is just to juggle the fly a little bit with the rod tip, a little bit of skating over the water, and you will soon see the trout try and chase it and grab it in like an epic way as well. It's a great fly. You have to have it.
I guess, yeah, so there are 2 flies there that on the face of it seem reasonably similar. So the high float caddis and the CDC and elk, in terms of size and proportion, look reasonably similar. The big thing with that high float caddis, believe it or not, is that in rougher conditions, in riffled water, it's going to float longer. There's some synthetic material under the wing. So it's going to float higher, it's going to float longer. Absolutely fantastic fly for riffly stuff.
It's a very budget fly because you don't need a lot of dressing. All you need to do is pin it off with your elastic band and you're good to go.
On the other side of that, so I was worried that if we just went with that and people end up in those glassy water situations, that could float a little bit too high. So the CDC and elk in a size 16 is the caddis for that situation where you've got that calmer water. It's going to sit a little bit lower to the surface film. absolutely fantastic again when you're on that glassy stuff and you can see him crunching caddis under trees and stuff like that in the evenings where you get those out of nowhere, you get that really aggressive take.
Yeah.
That's the one I'd fish in that situation because it's just going to fish a touch lower. Again, you get it dry in the same way, ping it on the band, get a little bit of dry dust in amongst the fibres, but you want that one to sit a bit lower, don't you? I think even though they look very similar, for me there are two very different
Yeah, do
fishing
different
situations.
things. Yeah, and this one again has a little pink post on it to help you see it, for it to stand out, especially in
Great evening fly,
Yeah,
isn't
great
it?
evening
Under the
fly.
trees, like you said, little skate and just freaking hang on because it's going to get whacked. Very different fly for the next one, IB. And yeah,
One
I
of my
thought
favourites!
this one was definitely one of the first flies we thought of, wasn't
Yeah.
it? We couldn't not put this in.
And that's a size 18 sparkle net. So I only started fishing it about 2 years ago, and before I'm like, oh, I can't see it, it's really tiny. It's one of the greatest flies. I can see why there's a big hype about it. There were so many fish where they wouldn't take anything, and I would be thinking about, well, I'm seeing olives, I'm seeing caddis here, I'm seeing some tiny little things that I can't even see what it is, and none of the flies that I was using, the fish would take it. And then I had stolen some gnats from
some of
you.
my gnats.
I sticked some on it on some 7X tippet, and I thrown it out there, and it worked. And from then on, I'm like, if I'm getting good drips with other flies and they're not taking it, I know which fly I'm going to be sticking, and that's exactly the fly I'm going to be putting on. And I guarantee you, it will work.
It's a super effective fly, again, those glassy conditions, isn't it? Those flat pools where you just feel like some of the other stuff might be a bit obtrusive. Just very quick time note here, we've left the sparkly tail long. Again, to give you guys a personal preference on whether you want that longer or you want it shorter. I think for most of mine, I'd probably trim that down by about 50%.
I would keep mine.
You would keep it, wouldn't you? So I trim mine down a little bit. And the way I go with that is the glassier the water is, the more I trim it down. I always leave a little bit on there. I like that little bit of shuck at the back. But yeah, we've left it long so you guys can decide how you want to fish it yourselves.
And the next fly is a size 14 all-purpose olive. You have to have that in the box. So I guess now we're going into the olive row.
Yeah.
And I will let you crack on with it, Andy.
Yeah, so again, a fly that actually featured in the previous kind of generic trout pack. We've changed it in that we've got a little bit bigger. The last one was a size 16. This is a 14. We've kept the design the same. We've got the CDC wing. We've got 4 turns of hackle on there so you can fish it on some rougher water. That classic body profile. This is going to be fantastic for those of you who are fishing large darks. This time of year, it'll be absolutely perfect. As you get towards the end of the year, you'll be able to fish this as a pale watery or something like that because we kept the body slightly lighter on this one. A total all-rounder. It's one of those flies that you could probably fish for most of the season and be confident if there are upwinged insects on the water, they're going to eat this. And as I say, because we've thrown that hackle on there, it's a little bit more buoyant. Fish it on the rougher water with more confidence. However, if you're on the glassy water and you can see they're taking up winged insects, particularly as we progress through the summer and we start to see more blue-winged olives, the next fly is the one for that. This is a size 16 olive quill dun, and I reckon this was probably one of my most fished flies last year.
Yeah.
If I see up wings, it's the first fly I put on. It always is. And then I'll go from there. I might go smaller, I might go bigger, or I might change the body.
But a 16 is like the average in and there in between, isn't it?
A size 16 olive quill dun does pretty much everything that you would want. And for a fish, unless something is significantly bigger, like a March brown, or tiny, 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 like the really late blue-winged olives, that's going to do it. That's going to do it. A quick time note on this one, we left a little tuft of CDC. It's going to, just behind the wing, it's going to aid with buoyancy, acts as kind of a secondary wing, gives you more place to put the floatants in when you're dressing it again. Just gives you a little bit more buoyancy. Again, you've got the option there of just trimming that secondary wing down a little bit if you want, but to be honest, I haven't found I've needed to in many situations. I think that's subtle enough as it is.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and it just looks like legs, really.
Yeah, it's a bit more stuff, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. On the subject of subtle.
And the next fly is a size 18 subtle spinner, and it's probably that, together with subtle dun, that is the next fly following, is the only spinner patterns that I used last year, pretty much, apart from like Mayfly that was very season specific. And I think that was probably about the same to you as well.
Yeah, I use a lot of these. So where we fish, we get amazing spinner falls in the evening, don't we? We're talking specifically here blue-winged olives, you know, the kind of stuff, 9 o'clock at night, things start to fall on the water. All of a sudden, every fish in the pool is up. I haven't found anything that's got a better profile for that than this. I really haven't. It's got those split tails, so you get that profile on the water. It sits nice and low. It's the right colour. if you're getting good drifts with this thing during a blue-winged olive spinner fall, you're going to rise those fish. It's as simple as that. Absolutely brilliant spinner pattern. Really, really effective. Yeah, my most used spinner pattern of the last few years, without any doubt about that. And on the subject of subtle, the next fly is definitely that.
It's a size 20 subtle dun, so it's pretty much the same fly as the one before, but it's really subtle. It's a lot smaller. It's a smaller, so we had put a subtle dun in our trout pack, the one that we did last year, but this is a bit smaller. The one was size 18, this is size 20.
That's right.
Again, great fly, great spinner pattern. I'm pretty sure days that were really hard and there was iron blue duns catching, I was fishing that as a dun as well, and it still worked fine.
Nailed it. Absolutely great as an iron blue. So that'll be coming up in the next few weeks. Hopefully, touch wood, there'll be some iron blues about. I also found on the days during the high summer where there were blue-winged olives trickling off and you had fish rising, you know, those real flat glassy pools, middle of the day, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I can't see what that fish is eating. That's what I tied on more often than not. It is tiny. It is absolutely tiny. It's tied on a really good quality hook. It's very small. It's very subtle. You'd be amazed how much of a trout's diet is made up with flies of that size. So if you've got iron blues, if you've got blue-winged olives that you can identify hatching off, I'd be there or there. We've got the 16, we've got the 20. So if you've got either of those insects, you've got two flies there between the quill olive and the subtle dun. One of those two is going to imitate those two bugs absolutely perfectly. You've got exactly what you need there. That subtle dun is just deadly. It's a great pattern. We catch so many fish on that thing. That one had to go in.
And last but not least, and it's probably a staple classic fly, is a size 18, the F fly. How could we?
Yeah, we couldn't not put an F fly in. It's one of those. I think you've probably been in the same situation before. One of the situations where you don't cover a fish with a couple of these and think, geez, I feel like I'm getting this right, and it's not happening. That F fly can make things happen at a time when it appears that everything else is pretty tough.
Which is interesting because it's such a simple fly. You look at it and it looks like nothing,
and
really.
And so generic. It could be an olive. It could be a caddis. We've used mole's fur dubbing, a very sparse mole's fur dubbing on the body, just to get a lovely translucence. And we've used primrose thread, so you get that kind of just hint of colour coming through the dubbing. It's going to sit nice and low in the water. You can dress it heavily enough that you can actually fish an F fly in quite choppy water. You can throw it on those flats, doing exactly the same thing as you would do with something like the subtle dun. There are so many instances. I think it's probably one of those flies that I end up going to as that last resort fly if I feel like I'm just not getting it right, to the point where I probably should tie it on earlier.
A bit more regular.
It's that kind of get out of jail free card that after a few years you start to think, actually, I'm catching a load of fish on this. We couldn't have made a proper river dry fly pack without an F fly in there. I think the size 18 is the right size. I think any bigger it starts to look bulky. Any smaller it can be hard to see in that choppy water, so I'm happy with the size 18. Dressing looks great, dubbing looks great. And between those 10 flies,
we've got you covered.
That really is. Other than the seasonal stuff, that really is
everything you need.
Pretty much everything we need. There were a couple of flies we wrestled on. We could have put a foam dun in, but again, we've already done that one, and it's quite a specific fly, isn't it, the foam dun?
It's a great fly, but we already have it in the trout pack.
Yeah, fantastic fly. So I'm really, really happy with how this has turned out. And as I say, if someone turned up for a day's guided and they just had these 10 flies, I would be absolutely over the moon.
Yeah, you're going to be covered any type of season. If it's early season, if it's late season, if it's fishing hard, if the fish are eating everything, you have everything. My favourite fly is still the gnat, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely. If I was to pick a favourite, I'd be somewhere between the all-purpose olive, the quilldun, and
everything.
I was just about to name everything, but that's the problem, is that this literally covers
everything
from the very start of the season to the very end. And other than, as we say, the real seasonal flies, the March browns that not everyone gets, the mayfly that not everyone gets, the hawthorn that not everyone gets, the staple stuff is completely covered there. You are not missing anything for an entire trout season. That's come out really well. I'm really happy with this dry fly pack.
Yeah, I think I'm proud of both packs, to be honest. I think if you have the nymphs for your nymphing, if you have the dries for your dry fly fishing, you're pretty much covered in any scenario, in any situation, any condition, and you're good to go. And more importantly, just remember, especially if you're dry fly fishing, if the fish isn't taking the fly, perhaps it's presentation issues. So maybe have a look at how you're casting. If you need to lengthen your leader, lengthen your tippet. Look, I've learned the word lengthen. And just go out there and enjoy it. It's fishing. It's great catching fish.
Just on the dry flies, just very quickly. So if you're looking for a way to get your dry flies dry, have an elastic band on your waistcoat, hook the fly around, give it 5 or 6 good pings, and then we both use Hunt's Original, don't we? Work this into the fibres of the fly, and it'll make a fly that was totally soaked completely dry again. That's how we dry them. I don't think I'm going to be changing that anytime soon.
Don't go out buying the bands. The best bands you can find are on the bundles of asparagus in the shops.
Yeah, we like an asparagus band, don't we? IB, that is it.
Woohoo!
That is both packs. So one thing we do need to throw in here actually, and there's a little special offer that we're going to do for the first week
for my birthday
on the website. Yeah, so basically for IB's birthday, we're doing a little special offer. So anybody who buys both packs, we're basically going to give you one of our free caps.
Yep.
So we've got the OG orange caps, we've got the camo caps. When you have put these in your shopping cart, you'll find there's a notes area in the shopping cart. Just write which colour cap you'd prefer, and free of charge, we're going to send you a cap. We're going to run that for the next week or so, next 7 days.
Till the end of April, I would say.
Till the end of April.
Or until the pack's sold out.
So yeah, we'll run that till the end of April. There's a free hat for you for anyone who buys both packs. The pack prices haven't changed. They are £45 posted to your door. So I think they are very good value for money. We also ought to say that these are on a fairly limited amount, and once they're sold out, the likelihood is we aren't going to get these back probably until next season. Because
the busy season just started for Andy, and he's going to be working every day, and there's going to be no time.
I'm going to be very, very busy guiding for the next few months, so we've got plenty of boxes in stock at the moment, but once they are gone, they are gone. So again, we really appreciate all the orders. Here is the web address for the web shop, abangling.co.uk/shop. Hopefully we'll see you guys there. Hopefully we'll see you on the water with some flies.
Guys, please send us pictures when you catch. We really enjoy it. Andy always shows me an email or on social media. Just tag us in, let us show. But more than anything, just go out there, enjoy your season, and I hope you catch plenty of trout.
We ought to go and do that now.
Yeah.
Guys, we're off to do some fishing. Really, really great to have you back on the channel. We'll see you guys again very soon for some more fishing and stuff. Bye-bye.